Gather around in a circle, my fellow species of primate, and let us jerk with joy. There are 17 more characters to critique, and my butthole is queefing in excitement, so let's just get right into it. Xiao is first. So right off the bat, I can tell that the energy propagation of the acoustic wavelengths within these moans are immaculate. There's clearly an astounding, and dare I say, astonishing amount of reverb that not only accentuates the ambience of the moan, but also amplifies it within your eardrums, so you get the home theater, Cinemax feel. In the heavy breathing section of these moans, there's a faint hint of leftover ultrasounds that, if you listen to very closely, has a very dulcet taste. Xiao's moans are also very energetic and capable, which kind of reminds me of the Prime Minister William Pitt, who in the 18th century led Britain to destroy the French Empire in North America. After listening to these moans, I too want to go into battle. Just like a flaccid penis gently resting upon my shoulder, I gently rest Xiao's climbing moans in the A tier. Rosaria is next. The first two moans are staccato, which kind of sucks, but the following three carry the team on their back. Moans that are staccato in nature are abysmal and disappointing. They are the acoustic embodiment of George Grenville, who in the 1800s inseminated huge taxes onto American goods, including the Proclamation of 1763, the Sugar Act, the Stamp Act of 1765, and the Quartering Act. Luckily for Rosaria, the climbing moans in the latter half contain a large amount of kilohertz and great AoE. After some macrosonic and ultrasonic testing of the Rosaria general climbing moans, the results show that there is a significant amount of thickness to them, which is always a plus in my book. Holy shit. Did she just moan in disapproval? Rosaria's heavy breathing climbing moans clearly have incredible ionizing radiation, but I feel that the moans are irritated. They're so strong and overpowered, but are often overlooked by the average human being and not appreciated enough, so you get a little irritation there. Just like Benjamin Franklin's pubic hair, I rate Rosaria climbing moans at the A tier. Let us proceed to Kamisato Ayaka's climbing moans, which, just like the perfectly shaped ball sack, I am dying to witness. That's pretty good. There's no way. But how? Not even the Fourth Amendment, which states that the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, can protect against Ayaka climbing moans. Kamisato Ayaka's climbing moans are unreasonably searching my butthole and ejecting a majestic timbre fluctuation audio suppository into it. The acoustic pressure, particle velocity, particle displacement, acoustic intensity, and timbre fluctuations of Ayaka's heavy breathing climbing moans amalgamate together like the 5 pieces of Exodia, which then obliterate my eardrums, giving me a seizure. The sheer bandwidth that these climbing moans contain could envelop the entire galaxy. The cutoff frequency and spectral density of Ayaka's climbing moans are so high that they contain an unhealthy amount of extraterrestrial nickel and iron, which is why meteors exist in this world. The Great Permian Extinction, which led to the elimination of 95% of all marine invertebrates and 70% of terrestrial species, was not due to some random RNG that the developers of our universe added. The poor trilobites, echinoderms, and amphibians were clapped by the unpatched and unnerved acoustic velocity of Ayaka's Genshin Impact climbing moans. A moment of silence for our fallen warriors and invertebrates that all fell trying to challenge Ayaka. Yanfei.
よいしょっと。よっと。ほ。へい。ふう。 よいしょっと。よっと。よっと。
So some of these climbing moans are staccato, but a lot of them have gustatory and flavorsome sound pressure. If you close your eyes and clench your butt cheeks hard and get a really good whiff of the pitch and duration, you can clearly tell that Yanfei's climbing moans are dulcified, like a nice sweetened cheesecake.
よっと。
The spatial location paints a vivid picture into my dendrites, and the loudness is robust enough to stimulate several cyclic auditory nerve periods in my tympanic membrane. I would like a little more acoustic velocity in these moans. My auriculotemporal nerve is not stimulated enough as I would like it to be, and I feel like Yanfei's climbing moans have the ability to do so, but execution is a little lacking. I put Yanfei's climbing moans in the C tier. Favoniously moving on to the next character, Eula.
やった。
Now unfortunately, with the general climbing moans for Eula, I only have one available to go on, so I'll just have to do my critique on this one.
やった。
They are short and succinct, but offer a pleasurable amount of timbre fluctuations.
やった。やった。
According to innervation, the somatosensory route from the branches of the mandibular nerve pass through the otic ganglion without synapsing, but with Eula's climbing moans, in the general sense, my somatosensory roots are synapsing. If I were to pinpoint the reasoning behind this phenomenon, it's probably because Eula's moans are lacking in bandwidth, at least in terms of the general climbing moans, but then again, there is only one of them that's working right now, so... I feel like I've been submerged underwater, but instead of water filling every orifice in my body and my lungs being overwhelmed by water pressure and influx, I'm drowning in acoustic velocity and timbre fluctuations. You know the scene in Harry Potter Goblet of Fire where Harry goes underwater and with the golden egg and some mer people start singing, "Come seek where our voices sound. We cannot sing above the ground." If you took an egg in Genshin Impact and it went into the waters near Dragonspine, you would probably have Eula mermaids float around who just start singing heavy breathing climbing moans that could rival the Harry Potter Golden Egg masterpiece. If you listen to the Genshin Impact heavy climbing moans of Eula for 10 minutes every day, the mitochondrion within your body will get stronger and be able to deal 10 times the damage output that it currently has. Eula's climbing moans are an easy S tier. Kaidehara Kazuha is next up to bat. So the unfortunate thing is that the general climbing moans are very staccato, and which is a dead... What? It can't be. What I was about to say is that the general climbing moans are very staccato, which is a deadly sin. Sometimes in life you come across something so rare that you just can't help but smile. This specific general climbing moan of Kazuha was a two-pronged moaning symphony that pushes its enemies away and then draws them in. The staccato nature in the beginning of the moan acts as separation and creates distance between the moan and the opponent. Then the AoE suck draws you back in like a Dyson V11 torque drive cordless vacuum. The heavy breathing climbing moans of Kazuha are, dare I say it, the audio bite equivalent of a Dyson V15 detect vacuum. I might have to get temporomandibular joint surgery due to how powerful and pulsating these moans are. Kazuha, A tier. Yoimiya. My initial medical examination of Yoimiya's climbing moans offer enough clinical significance of pleasure that I can confirm that I enjoy them. Just like the Townsend Act of 1767, which formed a program of taxing items like paper, lead, glass, and tea, Yoimiya's heavy-breathing climbing moans are taxing items, except instead of things like paper, the moans are taxing acoustic velocity, sound pressure, and particle acceleration. These moans are very full-bodied and eliciting wonderful richness and intense aromas. I put Yoimiya in the B tier. Raiden Shogun, aka Ballsack, but subtract the sack. is next. Unfortunately, some of the moans aren't coming out. Man, I can't help but feel flaccid and disappointed at Raiden's general climbing moans. They're so staccato. I didn't even know a moan could get this staccato. The audible frequencies are, of course, up to par, so the software update on the kilohertz are completely fine for these moans, but they just lack the ultrasonic range. You want a moan to encapture someone's soul and transmit enough pulsation to reach the sonar threshold, otherwise a moan is meaningless. Using ultrasound identification on the heavy breathing climbing moans of ball sack minus the sack, I find that the ultrasound signals are better than the general moans, but unfortunately the moans are just a bit too low contrast and dull. Raiden goes to the D tier. Sayu Sanganomiya Kokomi is next, to Watatsumi her way into my eardrums. Right off the vicinity of the bat, my eardrums are disappointed. The sine waves of Kokomi's general climbing moans are non-symmetrical, which is a big no-no for me. The radius is small, and these moans have small radial velocity. The heavy breathing climbing moans are fleshed out and have higher reference potential, which is a sigh of relief. The heavy breathing moans are definitely carrying Kokomi on their back. It's just a little dissatisfying that Kokomi's climbing moans are lacking in root mean square amplitude. Kokomi C tier. The next character to hunt after my eardrums is Aloy. Jiminy fucking crickets. Grating my nipples and tickling my gooch are two actions that would please me more than Aloy's general climbing moans. It doesn't take a genius to recognize how percussive and staccato these moans are. You can literally hear the particle amplitude of these moans being cut off. It's like someone went into Adobe Premiere Pro and literally sliced out the particle velocity in Aloy's moans. Even the heavy breathing climbing moans of Aloy have low energy flux. These moans are a little bit unprosperous, but that definitely has to do with the character itself. D tier. Kujou Sara crows her way into the acoustic battlefield. I sense a large variation of acoustic waves from Kujou's moans. The sound pressure and timbre fluctuations are quite pristine and leave a fruity taste in my mouth, like a well-matured and potent flavor. The definition of a perfectly seasoned and expertly garnished moan is right here, folks. Kujou Sara's heavy breathing moans are not only flavorsome and tangy, but are jam-packed with so much particle displacement and amplitude acceleration. The Cambrian explosion, defined as the unparalleled emergence of organisms around 500 million years ago. This radiation of major phyla was due to Kujou Sara's heavy-breathing climbing moans. Kujou Sara's moans have the power to evolve calcium carbonate shells and balance the amount of oxygen within the atmosphere, while also facilitating the metabolic processes that produce collagen. She could produce several Godzillas, skyscrapers, and great gods out of thin air with the omnipotent force of her heavy-breathing climbing moans. Kujou Sara, S tier. Thoma fixes his way into the moaning battlefield. Thoma, Thoma, Thoma. Staccato, staccato, staccato. Thoma's heavy breathing climbing moans are a bit gamey and medium dry. They lack moisture, and bandwidth is something to be improved upon. The ossicles inside my middle ear are a bit disappointed out of the lack of transmission, and these moans are failing to vibrate with enough acoustic intensity to please my eardrums. Thoma, D tier. Gorou time, I hope these moans are divine. I can immediately tell that the orientation of the general climbing moans of Gorou is a bit off. Judging by how the cosine and square waves of these moans are interacting with my eardrum, there indeed exists a healthy amount of particle velocity and sound pressure. However, my malleus bone isn't being stimulated enough by these moans. The heavy breathing climbing moans of Gorou are decently sized and offer relatively adequate acoustic supply of wavelengths to the inner cochlea, but the fluidity of the moans doesn't excite me all too much. C tier. Arataki Itto next. General climbing moans are fantastically pressurized. My tympanic membrane is genuinely pleased with Arataki's climbing moans. Sublime particle velocity, amazing timbre fluctuations, brilliant acoustic impedance, mitochondria powerhousing volume. If the heavy breathing climbing moans of Arataki Itto were the national anthem for a country at the Olympics, that nation would gold medal every single event in both the Summer Olympics and Winter Olympics. NBC would not even be able to cover the games because their commentators and correspondents would just be in a trance. They'd just be sitting there motionless after every time the Arataki Itto national anthem would play. The heavy breathing moans of Arataki Itto would invigorate every single competitor from the nation that plays the anthem, which increases their movement and attack speed due to how majestic and inconceivable Arataki Itto's moans are. Powered by Arataki Itto's moans, the athletes would world record every single event by a landslide. Itto S tier. Shunhe and Yunjin unfortunately don't have any audio in Honey Hunter, so unfortunately I can't critique any of their moans. We'll just have to wait till they come out. And that's the Genshin Impact 2.3 Japanese climbing moan tier list.